Good evening, everybody. My name is Monica Johnson, and I'm one of the school counselors at Westerville Central High School. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We also have Erica Geist with us.
Hello, like Monica said, my name is Erica Geist, and I too am one of the counselors here at the Westerville City Schools, and I also work at Westerville Central High School. So the college application process, we actually, before I'd say probably when COVID hit, we tried to think of different ways that we could connect with students and families. A lot of times will go into the classrooms throughout the school year. But this year with COVID, we decided to compile a list of different videos, especially for our senior students. And so one of the things that we kind of talked about was the college application process. And actually, like towards the very end of the slides, there's going to be a list of resources, and there will be a video for the college application process on there too. This one, I kind of took parts from that video and then added some new things in there as well. So first, I kind of want to talk about just the college options and degree types. A lot of times, we have students that are coming to us that have really never gone to college before. And so with the undergraduate options, we've got a bachelor's degree, which is typically like a 4-year degree for colleges. And so they've got Bachelor of Arts degrees, Bachelor of Science degrees, and some examples of where students can get those degrees from is Ohio State, Ohio University, Bowling Green, et cetera. And then we also have, there's an associate's degree. And so we've got the Associate of Arts degrees as well as the Associate of Science degrees. We have a lot of students once they graduate high school that will oftentimes go to Columbus State. And so they might earn their 2-year degree at Columbus State, and then they might transfer to a 4-year university, or they might earn their 2-year degree, and then they might just actually start working once they're done with their 2-year degree. And then lastly, we have a certificate. So that's typically like a 1-year or short term. So we've got students that, let's say they're like, oh, I want to be a hair beautician. So they might decide to go to like beauty school or barber school. The Delaware area career centers are great options for students because a lot of times they do offer just like 1-year certificated programs. And then when we're kind of thinking about the college search process, so we actually received some emails from all of you prior to meeting today, just kind of asking us where we start, where's a good starting point. Some of you might have freshman students. And so, we have a lot of things in the slides that might pertain to senior students, but, really we say it's really never too early to start the application process. And so when you're looking at, and your students looking at different places or different places they want to attend school, you have to really look at what is good for you and your family. And so, for example, location, academics, the size of the campus, we have some students that maybe want to go to a big school. So they might choose like, well, I think I might want to apply to Ohio State. But then we have some students that are like, well, I kind of want like a smaller college feel. So they might opt to go to Ohio Dominican or an Ohio Wesleyan. Campus appeal, the social life, sometimes students might want to participate in sororities or fraternities. And then lastly, the cost and the aid. So a lot of times that really might determine where a student decides to go. And then we've got some different pieces of advice here. So a lot of times students, we're actually in the application process right now to where we have students that are applying to colleges. And so I think, Mrs. Johnson can speak to this too. We have students that apply, one time they might just apply to one school, they might apply to 4 to 5 schools, but we always say that it's good to have realistic options. So, and then we say we always want to have at least like an Ohio public or community college backup. And also it's like, sometimes students are like, well, I want to attend college where my friend's going, which we're like, that's great that you want to be with your friend, but don't choose colleges based on that. Again, and you have to choose it for what's best for you and, your family. And then also communication is key. Just like with anything in life that we do, it's really important to communicate, especially between parents and students. And then also you want to keep an open mind. Throughout these slides, we're going to talk heavily about Navient students. And this is something that we call like the one-stop shop for college and career readiness. And so with that, when we talk about just like the different location sizes, there's a part in Navient's called the Super Match that is really helpful for students to try to figure out where they might want to go based on these areas here. So with the college admissions process, it's important to reach out to colleges for virtual tours and get answers to any questions relating to the college or campus. a lot of times now, just due to COVID, we have really turned more towards the virtual aspect of things. Also, visit college websites for dates and deadlines. Like, this is really important, probably one of the most important things when looking at the college application process. You absolutely want to make sure that you pay attention to deadlines. If there's a November 1st deadline, you want to make sure you hit that November 1st deadline. Then also, students, it's so important to be your own advocate. You know, once you attend college, parents no longer can email or talk to the instructors at the college level. You know, once a student's 18 years old, they're adults and they'll communicate solely with the student. And for some of you listening out there, you might have students that are actually doing College Credit Plus right now. And it's the same type of thing. You know, if there's an issue with the class, you know, you're not necessarily emailing the professor. They won't talk to you about that. And so also, while students may need help navigating in the process, they should actually be the ones completing the college applications. We get a lot where we'll have families contact us and they'll ask us questions like, oh, what's the GPA? Or I'm trying to figure this out and I can't figure this out for my son or daughter. So just make sure that they too are part of that process, because they really should be advocating for themselves. So college visits, like I said before, we really turned a lot towards the virtual college visits. It's never too early to start looking at colleges. And so you can schedule the visits on the website. I know some schools now are leaning towards that, where they are actually having in-person visits. In the fall, we have a great deal of admission reps that contact us. The great thing that we tried to do this year was throughout the district. So with Westerville North, Westerville South, and Westerville Central, we tried to have just a combined virtual college visit. And so we actually send out emails really just to the juniors and seniors. We send emails out every Friday of upcoming visits that will be coming up. And so if there's anything that, you know, let's say if Ohio State's coming, if you're really interested in that, please sign up for that. We typically make announcements through Naviance. We might send, like I said, send things out in email. We might use Schoology to get the information out. And then even if I have families out there now that are listening that are freshmen and sophomores, if by chance, like if you are very interested in attending one of these, please reach out to the counselor, because we can still, you know, get you set up to kind of go in, because it really, like I said before, it's never too early to start that process. And so with the college application process, we're going to hit on some key things here. So the first thing is completing the common application or the college application, which I'll kind of go back once we go through everything. Working on your college essays, if it's required. College essays are not always required for, you know, schools. And then also requesting transcripts, the letters, recommendations, test scores, as well as financial aid and scholarships. And so when we think of, and then let's go to deadlines really quick. Deadline terms. This is going to be really important here too, because there's 3 different things. So before, when I was talking about you really have to pay attention to deadlines, there's something called early action. And that just means that you're applying early to receive a decision sooner. And then it also gives you an opportunity to apply for various scholarships that might be offered by the college. You can apply to as many schools as you want with this early action deadline. Whereas early decision, on the other hand, you could only apply to one school early decision. And this means that if you get accepted to that school, that you have to attend that school. Okay, so that's the difference between the early action and the early decision. And then we have rolling admission, which that just pretty much means that schools accept applications until up in time the enrollment is full. So a lot of times, like Columbus State has something that is a rolling admission. Let's see, I think we have a question here.
Well, I was just going to add about early decision. One way to remember the difference between early action and early decision is with early decision, you've decided, like that's your one school that you want to go to. And I think you did mention that it's binding. So if you apply early decision, you know, you're expected to attend that college. So you can only select one school for early decision.
Okay, so the Common App. So we like to typically ask students, like, what is the common application? And it pretty much means what it says. It's a common application. So a lot of schools really use this form of application. And so it pretty much means you're applying to various schools using one application. There are some places that, let's say, they may not offer the Common App, or some schools that may offer that Common App. And so you can decide if you want to apply via the Common App or you want to apply just directly to the institution. And so when you go on to the Common App, this is what it looks like here in the front. And so a lot of times students will come here to create the account. One cool thing, which I didn't put on this slide, but like if you go on the Common App and scroll down to the bottom, there's a section where you can actually add different schools to see if the school is in fact a Common App school. So this again is what you will do. So anytime the student's like, yes, I'm ready, I'm going to sit down, I have all the things that I need for the application, I'm going to start doing my Common App. This is where they go for that. And so when you're in here, you'll see where you can add the colleges with the college search. And then you also are able to, on the left-hand side, see the various colleges. Okay. And so each college that you go on will have a different list of requirements. So some you might have to submit a college essay. Some you may not have to submit a college essay. Some you might have to actually input all of the classes that you've taken throughout your high school career. And for some colleges, you may not have to do that. Let's see. Was there a question, Mrs. Johnson?
Yeah, so we have a couple of questions actually. One of which I'm gonna address this one first, since we just finished talking about early decision. So the question is, what if you don't accept an early decision application? Say you change your mind after you submitted that early decision. So one of the things that we're told by the colleges is that if you say you're selecting early decision, they expect that you're going to attend that college no matter what the financial package is that they happen to offer you. So Ms. Geis, I don't know if you want to speak to any more about that as to what penalty there could be if you really do decide not to end up attending. I think there could be a financial penalty.
Yeah, I mean, we always encourage students, and that's why it's so important to communicate with, your family and the students, just to make sure that you're absolutely, saying this is the decision. Like Mrs. Johnson said, once you make the decision, it's pretty much like that decision is made for you. And two, the colleges like to see like, okay, this is where you really want to attend. And so that's a lot of times why students will apply for that early decision, because it's like, this is where I'm going. This is what I want if I get accepted. Whereas the early action piece, you're able to apply to as many schools as you want with that early action.
Question. We have one more question, and I think we'll get to it in a little bit. I just don't want the questions to stack up too much. But how do freshmen and sophomores find out about the college virtual meeting times? I think we have a slide or a link to that later on in the presentation. Is that correct? Okay.
Okay, so here are just a few college links here. And actually, you're going to have access to this this whole presentation. So you'll actually be able to go in and click the different links that we have. We just have just some of the common schools that students will attend. And when you click on that, you can actually go in and kind of look at the website, see the different things they have to offer, as well as if we have seniors that are in on here now, then you can actually click this and start applying to the schools. A lot of times with the schools, with the colleges, they actually have the Common App link already linked into that website. Okay, so transcripts.
I was going to jump in there real quick because there is a related question to that. If you can go back to that previous slide, please. So one of the parents was suggesting that people also check the actual school's website, and that's absolutely important as well. Not just relying on what the Common App is saying, but yeah, checking out, for example, Bowling Green, they're offering, they're waiving their application fee through a certain date. I forget what the exact date is, but it's always important to check the college's website to see any additional materials and make sure you're submitting all the required documents. So checking both the Common App and the college website.
So transcripts. So, as you're applying to colleges, students are going to have to submit transcripts, and that pretty much goes through our counseling offices. You don't have to necessarily submit like the transcripts before you apply to the college, or vice versa. Sometimes we have students that apply and then they request their transcripts and then we send them on. Sometimes the students might request their transcripts before they have actually apply to the college. They were in the process, and that's okay too. Typically with the applications and for the colleges, that opens up in August. Okay. And so we always get it. It never fails every year. We'll have students requesting those transcripts early August. And we typically don't really get the transcripts out until like the beginning of like September 25th. Okay. And that's just due to other like things that go on the transcript. So we've got students taking college courses or students that might be in the career center. So we have to wait for those types of things to come to us before we can add those onto the transcripts. And that's why there's a lot of times a delay in when we get those transcripts out. But just rest assured that we always get them out by the deadline, okay? And colleges are aware of this too. So they're aware of that and they work with us. And so don't be alarmed. Sometimes we will send out the transcript and then there's an automated message that students will get saying that they haven't received the transcript yet. And that's just because it goes through like a third party service. And so sometimes by the time like the third party service and the college actually communicate with one another, there might be a delay in that. But usually when the students call the college, they'll verify that they do in fact have that transcript. And so each school has their own process in terms of how they send transcripts out. So for example, for Westerville Central, we have a two-step process. And so students have to add their college into Navient Student, and then they also have to complete a transcript request form. And so what happens on that transcript is that the final grades of the junior year, so anything that they've done from high school, like 9th grade, all the way up to the end of junior year, or even students if they've taken classes for high school credit in middle school, that will all show on the transcript. And then we have students that, let's say they might want transcripts for scholarships they're applying to, or if they're going to be athletes playing at the NCAA or the NAIA, we send those out pretty much in the summertime. Okay, so once the junior year is over, we will send those transcripts out for free of charge. With Westerville North, their process is kind of like how our process is. So they too have 2 steps to request a transcript. So you have to add the colleges onto the Navients and then also complete the transcript request form. And then they also say there's no charge for transcript unless you have to mail it, which is a $3 fee. And then also with the transcripts for the scholarships at NCAA and NAIA, those are also free. South is a little bit different because they don't have a form that you have to complete for the transcript request. For that, you just strictly go onto Navients and request the transcripts that way. Okay, so letters of recommendation. So we've got, the application, we're applying to the schools, we're requesting transcripts. And then also, a lot of schools may want letters of recommendations, and that can be from teachers, from coaches, from mentors. It's really important though to research the schools to see if you actually need those letters. We have time and time again students that may want teachers to write them letters, but they don't necessarily have to have the letters. So for example, to get into Columbus State Community College, you don't necessarily have to have a letter of recommendation. Some schools don't even want them. And so when you're thinking about that, just make sure you research the school to make sure that they do want the letter of recommendation. And you only want to ask for like just the number that you need. So if there's schools that only require 1, then only ask 1 person to write that letter for you. And then also you want to provide enough time for them to write you a letter. So we suggest, even like ending your junior year, going into the summer, if you have people that you are, feel you're close to and feel that they know you well, if you want to ask them like, hey, can you write my letter of recommendation? Do that, okay? Because that will provide enough time, provide them some form of a resume. You can complete the resumes in Navients, or you can complete it, on a Google Drive or Microsoft Word. Make sure you hand them something or email them something, because they might know you, very well in the classroom, but there's also things that they may not know about you. Okay. And this is something that, we want to present yourself to the college and say, okay, this is why I should be here. This is why I feel that I should be here. And so you want to make sure that you ask somebody that really, knows you. And then we also say, make the request in person. Okay. Make the request in person or via email. And then lastly, you want to make sure that that request is added into Navients. Okay, that's really important because that's the way that the teachers will send those letters of recommendations. So college admissions. So this, is something that is pretty much changing. A lot of schools now are going test optional. And so in years past, students would take the SAT or the ACT. We were really a big, heavy ACT district. I'd say probably up until like a few years ago. But because we incorporated the PSAT, as well as the SAT, we want to make sure that we align with the testing. And so now we're pretty much heavily SAT testing. And so last year, but prior to us leaving and going, home due to COVID, the juniors were actually able to take the test for free. And so we plan to do that again with this current junior class as well. And so again, like I said, many colleges now are going test optional. So, in the application process, we have students that are kind of deciding like if they want to submit their test scores or if they don't want to submit them. And again, that's a decision that's really up to you. If you have a score, like a pretty good score, and if it's something that you feel like would help, you or the student, then absolutely go ahead and submit that. We used to add the test scores automatically when we sent the transcripts, but we don't do that any longer, really, because, a lot of the schools are going test optional now. So financial aid, this is a big one here. And so when we think about financial aid, we think of it as money to help us pay for college or career school. It doesn't come from family or any personal savings or earnings. And so, kind of going back with that process, we are applying to colleges, we're getting our letters of recommendations, we're completing our college essays. And then also in that process, you too are applying for financial aid. And so sometimes students are like, well, I don't know if I need to really apply for that. Do it, because you can potentially get money in the form of grants that you don't have to pay back. Okay, so this is something that's really important to do. And this pretty much opens on October 1st. And so when we look at financial aid and look at the different types, we've got grants, which do not have to be repaid. And this is a lot of times based upon financial need. Scholarships, we look at these as gifts. They don't have to be repaid. And then loans, we all, I'm sure, love the term loans, but this is borrowed money that has to be paid back. And then also there's work study programs. And I think sometimes a lot of students don't really take advantage of these work study programs where it allows students to earn money to pay for school while also working part-time. And so how this all works. So start planning, you talk with your counselors and the financial aid offices about scholarships and grants that you can apply for. And then you fill out the free application for federal student aid, which in short, we call that the FAFSA. And then this form is going to determine your federal aid eligibility. It's filled out each year, okay, before starting college, which is October 1st. So every year, October 1st, this is when the application opens. So both parents as well as students, if the student is working, will have to put information in there. And they go by prior year. So for this year, so class of 2021, they're going based on 2019 for the taxes. And so then once you submit your application, you're going to add schools that you want, your report to go to. And so then they'll send those out to the schools, and then you're going to get something called your STAR report. And it is just your student aid report, and it will explain the types of amounts and aid the college is offering. Then also, like if you're applying to different schools, it's really good to compare what you have, because a lot of times, like I said, like in the previous slide, it may come down to, who's going to offer you the most money. So then once you get your aid, the financial aid office will apply the aid to the amount that you owe the school, and then they'll send the remaining balance to you to spend on other college expenses. And then once once college is done, you graduate college, you're going to have a 6 months grace period before you have to start repaying those loans. And again, this will be done every year that you're in college.
And I'll say too, we do a special presentation every year just around financial aid. So there's a lot more information and detail within, that we could give you about financial aid, but that's a whole separate presentation in and of itself.
And so Navient student, this is, again, something that we use throughout the district. So really starting in middle school. And the goal was to, get students to use this program. There's different things you can do, anywhere from researching colleges, career exploration, transcript submission, scholarship search, self-discovery, as well as goal setting. And so, we've got the link at the very end for the Navians, and then we ask students to log in using their Clever account, which is pretty much their student Gmail account. And it's what they would use to log into the computers if they were here at school. And so this is the main page. So when you go into Navians, this is what it looks like. And so you'll see at the top right corner here where you've got, the home page, which is what we're looking at now. There's colleges, careers, about me, and then also my planner. So there's different tabs that you can go to, and it has everything that you need. And then I don't know if you can see where it's got what's new down below. This has a listing of like different colleges that are going to be coming to visit. So let's say if we were actually having in-person visits, they would be coming to the school throughout different times of the day. Or now, like I said, we're pretty much all virtual. And so we have a lot of those meetings like at 1:30 or 2:15-ish for those. Okay, and so when we're kind of thinking about the college application process and thinking about what students can do now, so we kind of combine the freshman and sophomore tab here. So, the first thing is creating a 4-year plan. So kind of decide, this is a great time for you to just really explore the high school classes, explore some different interests. We've got business courses, there's, health pathway courses, and kind of find, what you may want to do. Think about your life after high school. What interests you? You can take the different, assessments in Navians to explore, potential careers. Participate in extracurricular activities or volunteer opportunities. It doesn't have to be playing sports. There's so many different things that are available for students. Maybe it's a certain club that you want to join, but do something, because the whole part of your high school experience is to enjoy it, but also to help prepare you for what's to come after. And if you're wanting to apply to colleges, they look at the total student. So it's not just what you have on your transcript, right? So it's other things that you're going to be doing outside of that that's going to help you to look better, as you're applying to school. And then challenge yourself academically, do your best. So if your best is, taking that rigorous AP course and getting a B in there, then that's your best. That's all we ask for. Okay. But you definitely want to challenge yourself, attend college fairs and visit college campuses. I know we're kind of limited now, just kind of the opportunities that we have, but like if you're going on a family trip, family visit, take a tour of some of the different colleges that are out there. And then also keep in contact with your school counselor. We are here to help you, and that's what we want to do. So any way that we could help at any time, please don't hesitate to contact us. And that goes for parents and students. So junior year. So with junior year, the main thing is visiting colleges. Prepare your college list, which is something you can do in Naviance. Take your ACT and SAT. Like I said, we typically schedule that SAT for the spring. And then also make sure you sign up to take rigorous courses, during your senior year. Determine if a letter of recommendation is needed. And like I said before, it's not always required. And then if I have those athletes out there, make sure that you register with the NCAA Eligibility Center if you're attending to play Division I or Division II sports. And then also finish strong. And then we move on to senior year. And the thing is, once you become a senior, time goes by so fast. And so you want to make sure that you make a calendar and just organize key dates regarding the application deadlines, because like I said before, that is key. If the deadline is November 1st, it's November 1st, and that's it. Attend the financial aid meeting that we typically have. Complete your college applications and talk with your teachers about letters of recommendations. Apply for scholarships. We have local scholarships that typically become available in December. And this is something that we've done for a long time. And some of the scholarships are geared just, particularly to the high school. And so we've got some, scholarships that, let's say if a student attended Huber Ridge Elementary School and they were, worked as a crossing guard, then there might be a scholarship available for them. And that's just, really throughout just the community itself. And then also make sure you complete your FAFSA, which starts in October 1st for the financial aid and scholarships. Then also keep up on your grades. I know right now, like we're in unprecedented times, but just do your best to keep up with your grades. If you're struggling, please contact your teachers, contact your counselors. That's what we're here for. And then May 1st, that's the deadline to notify which colleges you'll be attending. Okay. And a lot of times, prior to that, you might have to pay like a fee to kind of like lock in that you're actually going to be attending there. And then also, in terms of like your housing, figuring all that out. A lot of times you'll have that done before May 1st, but the May 1st is the deadline to notify the colleges of where you'll be attending. Then we've got just some typical deadlines here. So as we said before, so August 1st, that's when the applications are available. October 1st, the FAFSA opens. And then October 1st to typically November 15th, that's like the early decision, early action deadlines. And then also with November 15th, that's when the Ohio State merit-based scholarship deadline is. And then you should really try, and we always say this every year, really try to have your applications completed by November 1st in order to meet that priority deadlines of multiple schools. And then also, even when it comes for us, the counselors to send your transcripts, it's so important that you give us enough time to do that too. It never fails that, we will have, if there's a November 1st deadline, a student will come to us October 31st asking us to send the transcript. Now, of course, we're going to do what's best, for the student. But, if we have an accumulation of, transcript requests, it can be really difficult to get that in enough time. So just make sure that you try your best to get those to us early. And then we've got January 1st. That's typically the deadline for Ivy Leagues and highly selective schools. And then March 1st to March 31st is typically when those financial aid packages will be mailed. Okay, you'll start hearing back from the colleges regarding that. And then again, May 1st is a national, deadline to say where you're going to be attending school. And so here's just, if there are any questions, we'll kind of take some questions after the presentation here. But if there are any questions after that, sometimes we go through different things and it's so quick. And then you might think of something once we leave. Don't hesitate to contact the counselors. Okay, so we've got 5 school counselors at Westerville Central. And then there are, oopsie. Uh-oh. Let's try this again.
This is when you have to bear with us.
There you go. Okay, I got it back. So, here we've got 5 counselors at Westerville Central, and then there are 4 counselors at North, and then there's also 4 counselors at Westerville South. Okay, and again, like if you don't have this, you'll have access to this presentation to be able to go back and have the links to these things. And then we actually put some different additional videos on here. Some are videos, some are websites. Like I said in the very beginning, we had the senior videos, that we compiled for students. But then really, I think anybody can use this. So even if you're a freshman, sophomore, junior, there's different programs regarding military, financial aid, taking a gap year. So there's a lot of things for that. Last year, there was a parent prep session on scholarships. And so we thought we would add this in here because that would be, important too. There's websites of the NCAA Clearinghouse, as well as the NAIA, Navient. Again, that's something that we use really heavily. So there's the website for that. And then we've got the Ohio private colleges and Ohio public colleges. These are websites that you can actually go to and look at all the different colleges, and it'll have pretty much a synopsis of like the types of students that enrolled, the average ACT, SAT score, the cost, to attend the school. So we thought that would be really good to add in there. And then I did have a question prior to this presentation that asked about, how do we even know how much it will cost for us to attend or how much money we need to have? There's something called a net price calculator where you can actually go in and, put in some different numbers, and it will tell you pretty much how much it may cost for you to actually attend, or your student to actually attend that college. And of course, we've got the FAFSA website there, College Board. Then there's a college virtual exploration. So we actually sent this out again to the juniors and seniors. And so this is outside of what we do just with our virtual counselor visits. There's different visits, virtual visits for pretty much any school that, you can go on and register for. There are a lot of times, like we're kind of going into that dead period now because the applications, are coming due. But the good thing about this site is let's say, you go through and you see something, I don't know, for Boston College, let's say, and you're like, man, well, I missed that meeting, but you can actually go back in and watch it again. And then also we've got an application guide for first-time students. It could be a lot to, go in and try to figure out, what it is you're supposed to do in terms of like applying to colleges, and even the Common App itself can be a bit tricky. And so you've got that there because it'll kind of walk you through that whole process.
Do you mind clicking on a couple of those, especially the college virtual exploration? Because we had a parent of somebody younger than a junior or senior wanting to check out those virtual college visits.
Okay. So here you'll kind of go down here and you'll see that there's still like a few: Virginia State, Morehead State. But then let's say if there's something that you missed, so maybe you want to look at, American College Dublin, you'll be able to watch that recording there. Okay. Was there anything else you wanted me to click on?
Click on the very bottom one, the application for first-time students. I think that's a useful, College Board is just a useful website anyway, but I think it's nice to see.
Okay, and so this again kind of takes you step by step. So like with your gathering materials, creating an account. And one important thing with this Common App and creating your account, you want to make sure that you use a personal email. Okay, please don't use your school email because once you graduate high school, that will eventually go away. But then sometimes, even if you're still in school, we may not be getting those emails through our school account. And so I'll walk you through what it's like to add your colleges, engaging different supporters. Now this piece right here, we don't really use that because we use Naviance. And so we automatically connect the Naviance, with the Common App. Well, actually students will actually do that when they go into Naviance. But there are some, students that may want other recommenders that may not necessarily teach, or are part of our building level, and they might choose them as other recommenders or advisors. And then we've got just understanding the different requirements, the different types of things that you're going to need. And then your essay planning, and then submitting your application.
Thanks. And that was the Common App website. Sorry, I said College Board, but College Board is also a very useful website. Ms. Geis, we had a question. A parent is wondering, you had mentioned something about November 15th for state merit scholarships. Were you just referring to Ohio State, or were you referring to all colleges?
No, that was just pertinent just to Ohio State.
Just to Ohio State. Okay, because they were a little worried that all of their applications needed to be done by November 15th. And that's not the case.
No.
Yeah, she was using that as an example. So a lot of colleges do want you to apply by their early action deadline so that you are eligible for any type of merit-based scholarships that they may offer at the school. And that's where typically a lot of scholarship money comes from, is from the particular college. So that's where most scholarship money comes from. Then, of course, there's thousands of scholarships out there, and we've got our scholarship presentation that you could watch later. And then we always encourage our students to apply for as many of the local scholarships as they can.
And so this really concludes our presentation. We will take this time to answer any other questions that you have. If you do not have any other questions, you're free to scan this QR code, and just kind of tell us about how we did. We would love your feedback. Like we said, this will be recorded, and so you will have access to this presentation as well as the links. I think really the most important thing are just all the different links that we have in here. And then if there are any other questions, ever, don't hesitate to contact the counselor, that your student attends.
And one thing I'll add too about Naviance, that was one of the questions a parent asked, and I answered it in the chat. And actually, I'm going to kind of scan through our questions that I answered in the chat just so everybody gets a chance to hear them in case you weren't looking at the chat. But they were asking about how to log in. We talked about that, but just get in there and play around. Any student in grades 6 through 12 has access to Naviance, and there's just a lot of information and a lot of really cool features that it has. And like Ms. Geis said before, it's kind of a one-stop shop. So, our seniors use it a lot when they're requesting transcripts and letters of recommendation, but really all the way, down to our sixth graders can use it to take interest inventories and research different careers. So sometimes I think it's our students don't use it as much as maybe they could. We had pushed it out a lot through different classes, like through our English classes in the past. Of course, our time is so limited now with COVID and the days being shortened, that it's difficult to get in there into the classrooms, like Ms. Geis was saying, to have students take these interest inventories as, kind of together as a group. So we just want to promote it as much as possible. Let's see what other questions. We talked about the early decision. One parent had asked about if say a student starts off at Columbus State and maybe takes a gap year or something, and they decide to go to a 4-year institution later on, how do they get their transcripts? Because they won't have access to Naviance any longer. They just simply reach out to their high school, to the counseling office, and fill out an alumni transcript. If they did want a letter of recommendation from a former teacher, they would probably have to reach out to that teacher individually via email or phone, and request that that teacher send that letter on their own to the college. That's just for our alumni, for our students who have already graduated high school. Somebody asked if you have to sign up for Naviance. You don't. You automatically have an account. Let's see. Do you need to update info in Naviance? No, you don't, because it syncs with PowerSchool. And also any of the interest inventories or even colleges I'm thinking about, there's a section in there kids can add, colleges that they found looked interesting to them. That information is saved from year to year. And I think we covered all of the questions that I answered in the chat. I don't see any new questions unless somebody has one. Oh, here we go. Do parents have access to Naviance or only through their kids' accounts? So it's really through their kids' accounts, right? I don't think there's a parent portal for Naviance.
It's not really the portal, but I think there is a link. There used to be a link through PowerSchool, I thought,
Okay.
for parents to be able to go in and to look.
Okay. All right. Well, can you think of anything else we haven't covered, or? Got a couple thank yous here, but you're welcome. So we appreciate everybody that logged in tonight. I know it's late, and it was a lot of information to go through. So we don't expect you to remember all of this information, right? It's really to give you an overview. And I tell my students this all the time. Like, I feel like we give them all this information and they kind of get like this deer in the headlights look, like, oh my goodness, you don't need to remember it all. We just like to kind of give you an overview, show you the different websites ahead of time. So when you get there, it makes a little more sense. But we, the counselors, are here to help you every step of the way. So don't hesitate to reach out to us. All right.
Thank you, everyone, for taking the time tonight.
Thank you.